Welcome to a very special episode of Between the Levees. I'm joined today by Mr. Moose Dougherty. He is the support crew leader for the Mississippi Speed Record for canoers from above St. Paul all the way to the Gulf. I don't want to get too far into that. I'll let him share the news, but Mr. Dougherty, thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Tell me first, how did you get involved in this project?
Well, Scott Miller, the team leader of the four paddlers and the overall effort, is married to my niece. And in 2019, he kind of reached out on Facebook to some people saying, hey, I'm going to put together an effort to try to break the record, the Guinness World Record for fastest time down the entire length of the Mississippi in a canoe. And I'm looking for some people that, help with shore support during an upcoming training session. And so I responded. I've always had a great interest in the river. I grew up in St. Paul, Minnesota, just blocks from the Mississippi. Pool 1 is really where I spent most of my time as a kid, fishing, swimming, rope swings, that type of thing. And, a chance they were going to do some training on the upper Mississippi near the headwaters. And I thought, boy, what a great opportunity to get up there and see that part of the river. So I responded and said, yeah. And spent that first, I think we were 4 days training between Lake Itasca and Lake Bemidji on the upper reaches. And I put together a 3 or 4 page document for Scott, explaining why I think he should pick me as his support crew leader for this effort. And he read it. He was so funny. He said, I'm looking at everything you put together here, and you have 2 of the attributes that I'm really looking for. Most importantly, that's great. He said, yeah, you're available and you want to do it. So there I was, hooked in.
Well, and who is Scott, and what prompted this attempt?
Well, Scott Miller is a guy that's always been interested in the outdoors. His father worked for the Department of Natural Resources here in Minnesota as a park ranger. He was very involved in scouting. He was the director of a scout camp here in Minnesota for a number of years, and was a counselor and attended there for a number of years. And paddling was a big part of that. And in 2005, he decided that I think it was the 75th anniversary of Eric Severide's Canoeing with the Cree effort, where he paddled from the Mississippi River in the Twin Cities up to Hudson's Bay, and Scott wanted to repeat that. So he actually paddled from St. Cloud, Minnesota, down the Mississippi to the Minnesota, up the Minnesota to the Red, and over to Hudson's Bay. And then he heard about an effort, an unsuccessful effort, I believe it was in 2018, and reached out to the gentleman that had been part of that and said, boy, if you ever try to, an unsuccessful effort to go down the entire length of Mississippi, and reached out to him and said, if you decide to do that again, I'd love to join you in that effort. And that's kind of how it got started.
So you've been involved, you said, since 2018 or 19?
Yeah, since 2019. Yes. We, the original team, that effort, we had intended to go in 2020, and that was sidetracked by the coronavirus. And, states were shutting down, and, insurance wasn't going to cover us. The Guinness wouldn't have given us the record. It just wasn't going to be possible to do it given all the restrictions that were on at the time. And that kind of led, that team kind of fell apart as a result of that. And so Scott put together another effort in 2021. And the gentleman that he was originally partnered with for the 2020 effort that fell apart, he put together a team as well. So there was 2 of us actually trying to break the record in 2021. Their team, they were called MM0. They left about 2 weeks ahead of the Mississippi Speed Record, Scott's team. And they did break the record. I think it was 18 days and 4 hours. And then they did it in 17 days and 20 hours or 22 hours, something like that. And then, we were actually ahead of world record pace. And then just south of Baton Rouge, there was a tropical depression. The waves were, I don't know, 3-4 feet high, and the canoe filled with water and got sucked right out from under the guys right there. Fortunately, we had a safety boat with us, so everybody was okay. So yeah, so they broke the record and we didn't. And then shortly thereafter, Scott decided he wanted to try again.
And have you been involved in, I mean, is this a year-round planning effort?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, since 2019, we've probably had, I don't know, 24 or more training trips on various parts of the river, the upper Mississippi, St. Louis, Memphis, pretty much up and down the river, getting to know different parts of the river. Planning, raising money, just ensuring that we've got the right equipment, recruiting people to serve on the support crew, that type of thing. So yeah, it's consumed a lot of time over these past 5 years.
Well, what did you do professionally? Are you retired?
Yeah, I'm retired. I was a corporate guy. I was in the public affairs arena, investor relations and corporate marketing, branding, foundation work, that type of thing. But I've always had an interest in, what I considered at the time to be endurance sport, marathoning, long distance biking, triathlon work, that kind of stuff. I wasn't really aware of the canoe community and particularly the elite canoeists around the country. It's a pretty tight knit group of folks that know and compete with each other. And there's all these wonderful races on the Missouri River and down in Texas and up in the Yukon and down in Florida and down in Alabama. And, just through this training and the various trips and races that Scott was participating in, and I was serving as his support crew, we get to know these folks. And that's really, how this latest team came together.
And I think I read you were delayed by weather this time.
Yeah, our original plan was to launch on the 3rd of May. And there's some big lakes that you have to paddle across in upper Minnesota that the Mississippi runs through, Lake Bemidji and Cass Lake, and in particular Lake Winnibigoshish, which is, I think, 15 miles long and about 11 miles wide. And the ice was still on the lake. And so we had to wait until the ice went out. And that delayed us about a week. When we got up there, the ice had kind of melted from the south half of the lake, and we thought maybe we had a path kind of across if we kind of took a southern route. But then a big east wind came up and it pushed all this broken ice down to the west end where the Mississippi flows in, and we were kind of stuck there for a few days. And actually, when the team took off from the headwaters, there was still ice on Lake Winnie. But we knew that it was going to be going out soon, and it takes about 20 hours to paddle there. And by the time they got there, the ice had cleared.
Can you walk me all the way down river? A few highlights along the way?
Yeah, I mean, really, I think of it in kind of 3 pieces. There's Lake Itasca to the Twin Cities, which is about a 4-day paddle. And in that paddle, you've got a number of dams that you have to portage around. There's no locks there. I think there's 13 different portages that are required. And then from St. Paul down to St. Louis, you've got the 28 locking dams that you can't portage around unless they're closed for some reason. And that's about 6 days. And then from St. Louis to the Gulf, it's about 7 days roughly, although our guys, blew that away really this last effort. And the river's really, really different. I mean, from the headwaters down to Lake Bemidji, I mean, it's just a ribbon. You can walk across it at the top, and it's thin. It's no wider than a canoe in many areas and very winding. And these guys had a 23-foot canoe. And, there were times when they had to get out and kind of move the back end around to make a corner. And then, by the time you get down to south of Baton Rouge, I mean, it's so wide and deep and much, much different. So you go from a very kind of a rural you know, environment where you're hearing wolves howl to, you know, kind of seeing the commercial aspects of it when you get down, you know, below Baton Rouge, or even before then, you know, when you see the commercial traffic and the barges and such. And so the river really changes. And, you know, you really learn going through that about, you know, it's amazing how the river changes so much. And, you know, being able to talk to folks that are familiar with specific areas that are kind of understanding what's happening that year in terms of, you know, where are the sandbars and what's shifting, and, you know, how deep is the water and where's the channel good and that type of thing. So we were fortunate to have a lot of really good contacts along the river to help us with that kind of local understanding.
How many hours a day were these guys rowing usually?
Oh, pretty much 24. I mean, they ate, slept, you know, were prepared to do everything in the canoe. And the center two seats are removable, and they had kind of an inflatable pad that they could put there, so two guys could be resting at any time. A lot of times 3 people would be paddling and one guy would be resting, and they kind of changed that up depending on how different people were feeling. I think on 3 different occasions they pulled over and slept for 2 or 3 hours. You know, they were well ahead of record pace at that time, so they had the luxury of you know, being able to take a little time to rest up and make sure that the folks that were, we had 2 safety boats that connected with the team in St. Paul and then followed them from St. Paul all the way down to the Gulf. So yeah, it was pretty much a 24/7 operation.
Well, I read a write-up about you on Facebook. That's what inspired this this visit on the podcast.
Okay.
Scott conveyed how busy you stayed trying to keep the boat supplied, keep everybody happy and healthy and rowing. What was your biggest challenge out there?
Well, you know, the support crew, I mean, we had, let me just start by saying this. I mean, we had, I mean, in order to get something like this done, you need to have a lot going for you. So first of all, you know, we had 4 world-class paddlers. We had safety boats. You know, we had experienced boat captains from the Missouri River 340 who were familiar with, you know, navigating on the river. I'll say more about that when it comes to Baton Rouge and places south, but we're familiar with the language of talking to the barges and asking, you know, where they'd like us to be, and you know, helping keep the paddlers safe. The water levels were really good, particularly in the upper parts of the river, and they were decent down south, but they were high, so the water was good. The weather was good. You know, we really didn't get into any nasty storms or anything like we did on the last attempt. We didn't have any waiting times to speak of at the lock and dams. You know, so really a lot, you have to do a lot of preparation, but there also is an element of luck involved when it comes to the weather and lock and dam waiting times, and you know, not having, you know, not capsizing or get a hole in the canoe. And I mean, there's all sorts of things that could go wrong. But yeah, so then really, you know, our job on the support crew is, you know, it's the safety boat operations and refueling are a big part of that. It's the food and hydration preparation and delivery, not only for the paddlers, but for the safety boats and for the support crew. You know, then you have, you know, paddler first aid, making sure they have all the equipment they need, you know, changes of clothes, that type of thing. You know, anything, the canoe is wired with a battery for all the lights and everything, just making sure all that stuff was working. You know, we had to move camp every day. You know, you're pulling the we had a couple of campers and RVs with us. We corresponded ahead of time with the Coast Guard and the Army Corps of Engineers to let them know what we were doing and where we were going to be and how, and the insurance company. And then I already mentioned vehicle transportation, moving base camp once a day downriver, finding those locations. Every day figuring out, we tried to deliver about 6,000 calories a day to the paddlers. And so we would do that on 2 different occasions. And so determining where we were going to meet them, what access point was available and then kind of backing out from then, when do we have to cook the meal and get it into the car so somebody can get it to the safety boat and the safety boat can get it to the paddlers. So it was all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of a moving operation because you really don't know how fast they're going to go or how slow. And we had a really great map of waypoints along the river that we could access, but some of them, because of flooding, weren't available, or sometimes there was, debris, logs, and things there. On occasion, the forest roads into them were closed because of the freeze dry, or the freeze thaw cycle. They didn't want cars in there at the time, so just kind of figuring out where we could meet them and when. So all that is going on, and then you're dealing with the unexpected. At one point, we had both of our boats had maintenance issues. One was a sensor and one was an engine. And so, and all the food and the hydration for the paddlers at that time was on one of the boats, and we weren't able to access it. So we had a quick, run to a store and buy some water and Gatorade and food and figure out a different way to get it to them. So it's kind of just that rolling operation. And so it ends up to be, a 24/7 type of thing. But we had 24 people involved. We had 5 around on the safety boats, and then we had 16 shore support people that were preparing the food and moving base camp and moving the vehicles and actually rotating on and off the safety boats, twice a day. 2 of those 16 people were actually documentary producers. Wilderness Mindset were along to document the whole thing, and they're going to make a film about it that should be out in the next 6 to 9 months, sometime like that. And there was a drone operator, and we had 2 other advisors that were kind of remote that were helping us find places to move the base camp, campgrounds, and river angels and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's a big operation with a lot of moving parts, but we had great people. Folks that really had an interest in the outdoors, were interested in adventure. I was lucky enough to have my brother along with me. One of the paddlers, Wally Werderich, his parents were along. Judd Steinbeck, one of the paddlers, his partner Daniela Montanez was along with us. 2 of my very close friends. So we had a really, really good group of people. Chad Craigness and his wife Mindy, who had been on the previous support crew in the 2021 effort, were both involved. Frank Burris, a writer who actually published an article about the 2021 attempt in Outside Magazine, was along. So yeah, it was a lot of good people and in a big effort, but it worked out this time. The river was kind to us.
It sounds like quite the logistical challenge there.
Yeah, it was. We tried to make it very simple. We're just, everybody understood we're trying to keep the paddlers safe, and we're trying to keep them fed and hydrated. And along the way, we're trying to take care of ourselves too. And so, whatever came up, people were able to adjust and get that done. We tried to keep it simple. It just sometimes there was a lot of moving parts to get those simple things done, to get the food and the hydration out on, to a boat and out on the river, where we could get, and then the refueling, figuring out where we could meet up with the boats to refuel them. A lot of places there was marinas that we could go to. In other places, one of the trucks that we had an external fuel tank on it that we could, back down a boat ramp and help fuel them. Importantly, this time, one of the things that we were able to get done is, the river's a totally different beast when you get down to Baton Rouge and south of there. And people were great. They were absolutely fantastic. But for, two recreational vessels in a canoe, it can be kind of terrifying, if you're not familiar with that. And so we were fortunate this time with the help of Joey Cargill and Gino Gandolfi, who are river pilots down there, who are originally, our plan was to have them get on our safety boats and help guide us from Baton Rouge down to the Gulf, because they're operating in that environment every day. Because of the delay, they weren't able to join us, but they introduced us to Joe McKee and Pat Gale and Phil Gandolfi, Gino's brother. And so we had folks like yourself that are, in that environment every day on our safety boat, talking to the other captains and helping to keep us safe. And that made a huge difference. And was a great source of comfort to all of us that were involved to have them there and helping us navigate, that part of the river. Where I would say, normally, I wouldn't recommend that people go there in a canoe or a kayak or a recreational vessel. I'd stick to Lake Pontchartrain or, go down there and hire the local fishing guides and, do some fishing. But the main channel is no place to be. But to get this effort done, you have to go there, and having local expertise with you to help keep you safe there, was critically important to us.
I've been trying to actually get Joey Cargill on this podcast. I discovered him on Facebook when he rode the length of the Mississippi by himself.
Yes. Yeah, he's been helpful to us on all the attempts and on our training trips. He's just been fantastic. The team that broke the record, the previous record holder from the 2021, he actually their safety boat broke down somewhere south of Baton Rouge, and he actually got a boat and went up there and helped guide them the rest of the way. Joey was absolutely fantastic. Gino Gandolfi too, helping us make the introduction to these other people who were interested in coming on board. It was fabulous. One of the things that you learn so much about the river and how alive it is, and how, its importance in nature and in recreation and in commercial aspects. It's really an amazing beast, the Mississippi. It's and they say it in song, and I know it sounds kind of trite, but people on the river are absolutely fantastic. They came out. We had fans come out. They brought us food. They cheered. River Angels let us stay at their homes and businesses. The pilots like Joe and Pat and Phil were interested in helping us and excited to be a part of it. We had John Ruskey from the Quapaw Canoe Company in Clarksdale, Mississippi, who's an expert on that lower part of the Mississippi and how to navigate it and where the channels are. And he said he has a whole webpage, rivergator.org, that guides you through that. Mike Clark from Big Buddy Adventures in St. Louis, Missouri, who's an expert on that part of the river and is out there. These guys are out there every day canoeing and know what it's about and how to navigate it. I mentioned Joey and Gino and Joe and Pat and Phil, and then Jacob Morris and his wife Courtney. They're co-owners of the Salty Marsh, which is it's an old crew ship that I think house crew that were out on oil rigs or what have you. Now it's it's a flotel now down in the Venice area, and we stayed at their place. And Jacob actually took Chad and I out to mile marker 0 at the end there at head of Passes Light, where we picked up the paddlers in the canoe. We actually had, I think, 43 people out there. We had 4 boats, and the canoe, our two safety boats, Jacob Morris's boat, and then we hired a crew boat that took, I think we had, I don't know, 34 or 5 family members and friends on that. And so at 2:30 in the morning, we had 43 people out there hooting and hollering when they hit mile marker 0 and horns blasting. And Joey had placed a book on the had to pass his light there. That is it a buoy? I guess that's what you call it, a buoy,
Right.
In a waterproof case. And so people that make it there can open up that waterproof case and sign their name and when they were there and things like that. So I'll never forget it. It was just an awesome scene, and it was in the middle of the night too. We were very lucky. No traffic that night. That it was calm. And Phil Gandolfi was with us at the time, and able to guide them. Hey, head for that green blinking light, or head this way, or get the paddlers headed in the right direction. So yeah, it was wonderful. The River Angels, Sue and Mark Mason on Lake Pepin. We stayed at their home. I mean, they open up their place to all of us on the support crew, and we're going 24/7. So I mean, it's for that 24 hours, it's a little bit hectic. Yeah, Ken Purdy in Iowa, James Bridges actually in the West Hickman Kentucky Baptist Church. That congregation, they have a community center that we stayed at a number of times. Both during both attempts and then during training sessions. Dale Sanders, who's in Bartlett, Tennessee, he's an 87-year-old gentleman that just broke the world record for the oldest person to ever paddle from source to sea. We stayed at his place, and so people were absolutely fantastic. I mean, it was a great experience. Really kind of reaffirms that people are awesome.
What does something like this cost, and how was it all funded?
Well, I think it probably, I mean, I don't have an exact number. 25,000, I think, is probably a good number. I mean, some of that is for the equipment. A lot of it's for just the gasoline that it takes to get everybody, down the river and then back home. A lot of it is for food and the hydration and that type of thing, and trying to keep 24 shore support and the 4 paddlers fed, so it was raised in a couple of different ways. We did have sponsors. The Mississippi River Network was a big sponsor. That's a coalition, I think, of 58 different nonprofits up and down the river that build support for conservation and preservation and recreation activities. And Embark, it's a company that makes it's a natural electrolyte replacement that the guys use. So we raised money from sponsors. We had people came to see the team go by at various boat ramps and things and would make donations. We had hats and t-shirts and sweatshirts and coffee mugs and water bottles and things for sale that help raise some money. So yeah, it's a big effort, and that's a good portion of what you try to do is raise the money necessary to fund the thing. And then we had to do that on 2 occasions, of course, for 2021 and 2023. But yeah, people were excited to be a part of it.
Well, and what was the new record?
16 days, 20 hours and 17 minutes or something. They beat the previous record by 23 and a half hours, so almost a full day. So yeah, it was decisive.
Finally, I guess, do you expect if someone is to break this record that Scott chases it yet again?
No, I don't. I hope someone does try. I hope there are people out there like Scott and Paul Cox and Wally Werderich and Judson Steinbeck who want to become part of the Mississippi lore. I would say I don't recommend it. It is dangerous. It does take a big effort. I mean, you have to have those paddlers. you need the support staff, you need the financial means. You need to have relationships with experts that can help you understand the river in different areas and such. Maybe there's a minimalist way to go about it. I don't know. I would think that might be more dangerous if it didn't involve the safety effort. I mean, we needed that safety, those processes in place both times that we were there. And the previous record holders, they had a couple incidents. They got into a whirlpool that they happened to get out of without any trouble, big trouble. And then when they got to New Orleans, I don't know what you call them, but there's those fingers that go out from the river that kind of flow right out to the ocean. And they got swept into one of those and had to paddle their way out on a couple different occasions. And I think we're fortunate. I think Scott's probably done. My guess is that this latest record is one that will stand for some period of time. But I hope somebody tries. I hope there's still people out there that want to do that, have that type of adventure and become part of the lore of the Mississippi.
Well, I'm glad to hear it was pretty much incident free and you did, in fact, secure the record.
Yes, it was an awesome time. The best part about it is that first of all, you learn that people are fantastic. I think, which is reassuring, particularly the kind of environment that you see today. It was I think people naturally migrate to something positive. I mean, it was a great adventure. I'm 63 years old. I don't think, at least I don't think people my age usually make a lot of new friends. I don't know, maybe they do, but I've made a ton of new friends as a result of this from all over. I mean, I never knew that I would get to know some river pilots and have conversations with them and all the great people that were on the crew, both in the attempt in 2021 and this attempt in 2022, and all the fans and such and their families. Yeah, it's been a fabulous experience.
Well, Mr. Dougherty, I appreciate your time this evening. I'm very glad we can get this done.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Tim.
This has been a production of Where You At Studios, LLC.